Azure Tides U Billionaire Vows. Chapter 1: The Dying Sea. The Atlantic Ocean had stopped singing. Elowen Voss felt it in her bones before she saw it. Beneath 3,000 feet of midnight water, where sunlight barely dared to penetrate, the ancient azure reef pulsed with a weak, flickering glow. Once, this entire trench had burned bioluminescent blue, a sprawling cathedral of living coral that had sheltered her people for 5,000 years. Mermaids had ruled these trenches long before humans built ships, long before they invented plastic, long before they turned the sacred sea into a dumping ground for their endless greed. Now it was dying. Elowen swam slowly through the crumbling arches of coral, her iridescent teal tail brushing against broken polyps. Clouds of microplastic floated like toxic snow, clogging the gills of reef fish, smothering the young coral buds that should have bloomed eternal. The water hummed with a low, artificial vibration, a constant drilling thrum that vibrated through the ocean's crust, a human invention that scrambled the mermaid's sonic communication, that drowned out the sea's natural song. "The mining ships never stop," Elias said, appearing beside her, his silver tail sharp and tense. His voice was rough, worn thin from decades of watching human destruction. "Cross Global has pushed their drill sites 3 miles closer this month. The trench walls are cracking. The reef's core is bleeding energy." Elowen's fingers traced a blackened section of ancient brain coral. Once it had glowed bright cyan, pulsing with the collective life force of her kingdom. Now it was gray, brittle, dead. "They don't know they're killing a living soul," she whispered. Her voice was melodic, resonant, the natural song of her kind that could calm storms or heal wounded sea life. But today her song was thin, sad. Humans see the ocean as endless. Empty. A resource to take, not a life to protect. "They know," Elias snapped. "Their CEO knows. Killian Cross sees the data. He sees the dying reef reports. He chooses profit over mercy." The name landed heavy in the dark water. Killian Cross. The human billionaire who owned the Atlantic. The man whose drills tore apart the seabed. The man whose cargo ships spilled oil, whose deep-sea mines stripped rare earth metals from sacred ground, whose corporate empire was single-handedly erasing the last mermaid kingdom from existence. Elowen had watched him for years. She'd seen his sleek black yachts cutting through wave crests at dawn. She'd seen his remote submersibles descending into her trench, cameras scanning her home, machinery tearing at her reef. She'd seen his face, on floating billboards, on every ocean news channel, sharp jaw, cold gray eyes, unsmiling, a man who had built a fortune by conquering the sea. "The core will collapse within 2 months, Elias said grimly. "If the drilling continues, the azure reef will die. When it dies, every mermaid bonded to it will fade. We will not survive." Elowen closed her eyes. She could feel it, the reef's heartbeat slowing, weaker every day. The ancient magic that had sustained her people for millennia was being suffocated by human waste and human industry. "I have to stop it," she said. Elias's eyes widened. "Elowen, no. The law of our people is absolute. No royal may reveal themselves to humans. No royal may walk among them. The risk is too great. The risk of doing nothing is extinction," she countered. "I will go to the surface. I will find him. I will make him see what he's destroying." "Humans are cruel," Elias warned. "They will capture you. Study you. Exploit you. Kill you." "Let them try," Elowen said. "I am the last heir of the Azure Tides. If my life is the price to save the ocean, I will pay it." That night, the mermaid princess swam upward for the first time in a century. She rose through layers of dark water, past drifting plankton, past migrating pods of whales that sang mournful songs of pollution and lost feeding grounds. The higher she climbed, the thicker the plastic debris became: bottles, nets, fragmented microplastics that hung suspended in every cubic foot of sea. The ocean she loved was choking, and humanity did not even pause to notice. When she broke the surface, dawn was spilling gold over the waves. And there, anchored half a mile from the reef's hidden trench, sat the largest superyacht she had ever seen. The Cross Legacy. Black hull, polished steel, towering decks, a floating fortress belonging to the man destroying her home. Elowen hovered in the waves, her teal tail glinting in the early sunlight, hidden by swells. She watched the upper deck. And there he stood. Killian Cross. He was taller than she imagined, broad-shouldered, dressed in a crisp white button-down rolled up at the sleeves, dark trousers, no jacket despite the sea breeze. His dark hair was wind-tousled, his gray eyes sharp as storm clouds as he stared out at the ocean he was conquering. He held a tablet in one hand, scrolling through project data, his face completely devoid of emotion. This was the man killing her world. This was the man she would have to trust. Chapter 2: The Man Who Owns the Sea. Killian Cross hated the ocean. It was a truth he had carried since childhood, buried deep beneath every corporate victory, every billion-dollar deal, every headline that hailed him as the king of maritime industry. At 16, a hurricane had sunk his parents' research vessel. The ocean had swallowed them whole, had given back nothing but splintered wood and empty life jackets. It had left him orphaned, alone, forced to fight for every penny he would ever earn. So he had conquered it. He had turned the sea's chaos into capital. He had drilled its floors, mined its trenches, mapped its darkest depths, turned its natural resources into the largest maritime empire in modern history. To Killian Cross, the ocean was not a living beauty. It was a resource. A challenge. A beast to be tamed and exploited. He stood on the deck of his super yacht, the salt wind stinging his cheeks, and reviewed the final excavation report for Project Deep Azure. The numbers were perfect. Rare earth metals, high-grade mineral deposits, untapped reserves that would double-cross Global's annual revenue. The trench was remote, unregulated, far from civilian coastlines. Environmental groups had protested initially, but Killian's legal team had buried every complaint, funded every loophole, silenced every scientist who dared to warn of ecological collapse. Project clearance is finalized, Sophia Mercer said, stepping beside him, her tone professional but tight with disapproval. She was his chief legal counsel, one of the only people brave enough to speak plainly to him. Drilling expansion begins tomorrow. We have full government approval. Killian nodded, not looking up. Any remaining pushback? Independent marine biologists are publishing emergency papers. They're calling the trench a critical endangered ecosystem. They claim the deep coral reef is unique, irreplaceable. Killian scoffed softly. Irreplaceable coral doesn't pay salaries. Doesn't fund research. Doesn't build cities. Progress requires sacrifice, Sophia. You know that. Sacrifice is one thing, she replied quietly. Erasing an entire ecosystem is another. Killian finally glanced at her. His gray eyes were cold, unyielding. You work for me, not the ocean. Sophia fell silent, but her gaze lingered on the churning blue waves, worried and guilty. She knew what Killian did not. She had seen the classified sonar data. The trench was not just coral. It was alive in ways human science could not explain. Killian returned to his tablet, dismissing the conversation. He had heard every environmental argument 1,000 times. Poor conservation versus human advancement. Nature versus profit. To him, the choice was always obvious. Humanity survived by taking. By dominating. The ocean had taken his family. He would take back everything it had. It was then that he saw her. A flash of teal beneath the waves. At first, Killian thought it was light refraction. A trick of the morning sun on the water. He stared harder, narrowing his eyes, expecting the glint to vanish. It did not. 30 yards from the yacht, a figure hovered in the open ocean. Human from the waist up, with pale skin, long flowing silver-blue hair that drifted on the water's surface, delicate shoulders, a face so impossibly beautiful it did not look real. And below her torso, instead of legs, a long, iridescent mermaid tail, shimmering teal and sapphire, catching the sunlight like liquid gemstone. Killian's breath caught in his throat. He froze, tablet slipping slightly in his hand, every rational thought short-circuiting. Mermaids were myth. Fairy tales. Children's stories. But this was real. She lifted her head, and her eyes met his across the water. Her eyes were ocean blue, deep and ancient, filled with sorrow and anger and a quiet power that made his chest ache. She did not look scared. She looked furious. For a long heartbeat, they stared at each other, human billionaire and sea princess, separated by nothing but salt water and centuries of hatred. Then she spoke. Her voice carried across the waves without effort, clear and melodic and hypnotic, a sound no human throat could ever produce. You are killing my home. Killian Cross had faced down boardrooms, hostile takeovers, armed competitors, global politicians. He had never flinched from anything in his life. But at the sound of her voice, he flinched. Sophia turned sharply, following his gaze. Her eyes widened in pure shock, but she recovered faster than him. Killian, don't move, she whispered urgently. Don't startle her. What is she? Killian asked, his voice rough, disbelieving. Sophia exhaled shakily. The secret the sonar data was hiding. The reason every biologist begged you to stop drilling. She's real. They're real. The mermaid did not swim away. She drifted closer, slow and deliberate, her tail rippling softly through the waves. Killian could see every detail now, the faint bioluminescent freckles across her collarbones, the water droplets clinging to her hair, the pure, unfiltered grief in her eyes. Your drills crack the reef's core, she said, her voice steady but trembling with suppressed emotion. Your ships poison the water. Your plastic waste buries our homes. Your progress is our extinction, Killian Cross. He did not know how she knew his name. He did not care. All he could do was stare at the impossible woman floating in front of him, at the living proof that everything he believed about the ocean was wrong. Who are you? He asked hoarsely. She lifted her chin, proud and unbroken. I am Elowen, princess of the Azure Tides, guardian of the last living coral kingdom on earth. And you are destroying everything I have ever loved. Chapter 3: The Bargain of the Sea. Elowen expected fear. She expected greed, curiosity, terror, the usual human reaction to the impossible. She had prepared for anger, for capture, for him to call his crew, to deploy nets, to treat her like a discovery to exploit. But Killian Cross did none of those things. He simply stared at her, his gray eyes unreadable, his rigid corporate mask cracked open for the first time in years. Shock lingered there, yes, but beneath it was something else, raw, buried loneliness, a quiet grief that mirrored her own. It confused her. You claim I'm destroying a kingdom, Killian said finally, his voice low and controlled. I've spent years mapping this trench. No civilization exists here. No recorded life forms of higher intelligence. Only coral and fish. Your technology cannot detect us, Elowen replied. Our magic hides our cities from your sonar, your cameras, your scanners. Until your drilling broke the barrier. Your noise shattered our concealment. You exposed us while you destroyed us. She drifted closer still, until she was only 10 feet from the yacht's railing, close enough that Killian could see the faint glow of her skin beneath the sunlight. The Azure Reef is not just coral, she told him. It is a living, conscious entity. It stores the ocean's memory. It regulates current patterns, heals polluted waters, sustains every marine species in this entire hemisphere. When you mine it, you kill the ocean's heart. Killian's jaw tightened. He was a man of data, of logic, of proven results. Magic, conscious reefs, sea kingdoms. It defied every scientific principle he had ever studied. Yet he could not deny the truth in front of him. She was real. Her existence rewrote every rule. If I stop the drilling, he said carefully, what do I gain? Elowen's brow furrowed. Gain? You gain survival. You gain a planet that does not die at human hands. That's not enough for a corporation, Killian said flatly. My company employs 120,000 people globally. My projects fund marine research, coastal infrastructure, disaster relief. I cannot halt a billion-dollar operation on the word of a mythical creature. Sophia stepped forward, urgent. Killian, the ecological collapse alone is justification. No, he cut her off. I need proof. I need irreplaceable value. I need a reason to sacrifice profit that my board will accept. Elowen understood then. Humans did not act for mercy. They acted for exchange. For bargain. She closed her eyes for a moment, weighing every risk. To reveal her power was to expose her people's greatest secret. To bargain with a human billionaire was treason under mermaid law. But it was the only way. I will give you proof, she said, opening her eyes. I will give you value no human technology can replicate. Killian tilted his head. What kind of value? Healing, Elowen said. My song can reverse marine pollution. It can revive dead coral. It can restore damaged ocean ecosystems faster than any human invention. If you halt Project Deep Azure permanently, I will help you repair every section of ocean your company has damaged. I will give your empire a legacy of restoration instead of destruction. You will become the world's greatest ocean savior instead of its greatest destroyer. Killian's breath hitched. It was the perfect deal. Public redemption, scientific immortality, unlimited ecological progress, all in exchange for abandoning one destructive project. But there was a catch. He heard it in her silence. What's the cost? He asked. Elowen's gaze was steady, unflinching. I will stay with you. On land. In your world. Until the reef is fully healed. I will live among humans, bound to your side, so you may witness every restoration, so you may never again ignore the life beneath your ships. Elias's warning echoed in her mind. Humans will exploit you. Capture you. Break you. But Elowen pushed the fear aside. She would sacrifice her freedom for her people. Killian stared at her, processing the weight of her offer. A living mermaid. A creature of myth and magic, willing to bind herself to him. To change his entire legacy. For the first time in his adult life, Killian Cross felt something unfamiliar: humility. You would leave your ocean for me? He asked quietly. I would leave everything to save it, she corrected. This is not a favor for you. This is a bargain for the sea. Accept it, or watch my home die. And when my home dies, your oceans die next. No profit will save humanity from a dead ocean. Killian looked from her desperate, beautiful face to the endless blue waves stretching for miles, to the super yacht, to his empire, to the future he had built on destruction. He made his choice. Deal, he said. Elowen's shoulders relaxed, a faint, fragile hope lighting her features. Then Killian held out his hand toward the water, a human gesture of trust. Come aboard, Elowen. Let's rewrite my legacy. Chapter 6: Mortal Shores. Stepping onto land broke Elowen. It was not painful, not exactly. It was worse. It was a fundamental unraveling of every part of what she was. When her tail touched the yacht's wooden deck, it shimmered, rippled, rearranged. The iridescent teal scales faded, the long muscular tail split and lengthened, bones shifting beneath skin until two human legs stood trembling in place. Her fin vanished entirely, leaving only faint blue bioluminescent veins winding up her calves, the last trace of her true form. Elowen stumbled, unused to gravity, unused to the heavy, dry air of the human world. She had walked on land centuries ago, briefly, before her people banned surface contact, but the memory was faint, distant. Killian moved instantly, catching her by the elbows to steady her. His hands were firm, warm, human. The touch sent a strange, electric shiver through her body, a connection between mortal and sea creatures she had never felt before. Easy, he said, his voice softer than it had been all morning. You're unsteady. Elowen lifted her gaze to his, breath shallow. Land magic is foreign to me. My body belongs to the water. You'll adapt, Killian said. He slipped off his outer blazer, draping it over her bare shoulders to cover her, his movements unintentionally gentle. I'll help you adapt. Sophia watched the interaction in quiet awe, quickly pulling a pair of loose trousers and a soft linen top from the yacht's guest quarters, handing them over. These will fit, she said kindly. We can't have anyone seeing you like this. No one can know your secret, Elowen. Not the crew, not the board, not the press. If word gets out, every government, every research lab, every black market collector in the world will hunt you down. Elowen nodded, understanding the danger. Her people were endangered enough without human hunters chasing them for profit. While she dressed, Killian turned to Sophia, his voice dropping to a sharp, urgent command. Shut down Project Deep Azure immediately. All drills offline, all equipment recalled, all personnel reassigned. Issue a full public statement announcing permanent cessation of all deep-sea mining operations in the Azure Trench. Sophia's eyes widened. Killian, the board will revolt. The shareholders will tank the stock. Let them, he cut her off. I own 51% of Cross Global. The board can't overrule me. Do it now. Sophia stared at him, stunned. She had worked for Killian Cross for 7 years, and she had never once seen him choose loss over profit. never seen him abandon a billion-dollar project without a second thought. But she saw it now, the shift in him. The mermaid had changed something fundamental in the ruthless billionaire. "Yes, sir," she said, pulling out her phone to execute the order. When Elowen returned, dressed in simple human clothes, her silver blue hair falling loose over her shoulders, her sea blue eyes still bright and otherworldly, Killian's chest tightened. She looked human. Almost. But there was no mistaking the ancient magic in her gaze, the quiet power in her posture, the way she breathed like she still belonged to the tides. "What now?" she asked, standing straight, regaining her royal composure. "Now we go home," Killian said. "To my private coastal estate. Secluded, private, no press, no public access. You'll stay there while we begin restoration work." "And if I fail?" Elowen asked quietly. "If my song cannot heal what you have broken?" Killian's gray eyes locked on hers, unwavering. "Then we find a way to fix it together. I don't break bargains, Elowen. Not even for profit." The yacht turned toward shore, cutting smoothly through the waves. Elowen stood at the railing, staring back at the endless ocean, her home shrinking behind her. She could feel the reef's faint, desperate pulse calling her back, could feel Elias's anger and fear beneath the waves. She had left everything behind. For a human. For a billionaire destroyer. But as she glanced sideways at Killian, standing guard beside her, quiet and protective, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she had not made a mistake. Meanwhile, beneath the waves, Elias watched the yacht vanish toward the coastline. His silver tail coiled tight with rage. He had watched Elowen bargain with the human. Watched her step onto mortal land. Watched her bind herself to the enemy. And he swore a quiet, deadly oath. If the human hurt her, if the human betrayed her, if the human broke her heart or destroyed her hope, he would drown every last one of them. Chapter 5, The Billionaire's Sanctuary. Killian Cross's coastal estate sat on the edge of a private cliff overlooking the Atlantic, a sprawling modern mansion built from glass, stone, and dark cedar, tucked away from public roads, hidden by ancient coastal forest. It was the most private property in the entire state, isolated enough to keep a mermaid's secret safe. Elowen stepped out of the black luxury SUV, her legs still unsteady, on pavement, and stared up at the house. It was vast, cold, sterile, everything the ocean was not. No movement, no life, no song. Just quiet human luxury. "It's empty," she said softly. Killian closed the car door beside her. "I don't entertain guests. I live alone." "You live lonely," she corrected. He did not deny it. Inside, the mansion was minimalist, sleek, high-end, every surface polished and perfect. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean, giving unobstructed views of the waves below. Elowen walked straight to the glass, pressing her palm against the cool surface, her eyes tracing the waterline longingly. She could feel the ocean from here. Faint, distant, calling her home. "You can return to the water every night," Killian said, reading her longing. "The private cove below the cliffs is entirely enclosed. No public access, no cameras, no boats. You can shift back to your true form after dark. I'll never restrict your connection to the sea." Elowen looked back at him, surprised. "You trust me to return?" "You gave me your word," Killian said simply. "I respect bargains." It was a strange thing, she thought. The ruthless corporate giant, feared worldwide for his cutthroat deals and zero-mercy business tactics, was honorable beneath his cold exterior. Over the first week, Elowen learned to navigate the human world. She learned stairs, door handles, electricity, temperature control. She learned human clothing, human food, human speech nuances. She watched documentaries on ocean pollution, read scientific reports on marine decay, studied the full scale of human destruction she had sworn to reverse. And every night, after Killian finished his work, he walked her down the cliff path to the private cove, where she slipped into the salt water and shifted back into her mermaid form, healing small patches of damaged rock and dead sea grass with her song. Killian never touched her in the water. Never intruded on her sacred connection to the sea. He simply sat on the shore in the dark, watching her glow beneath the waves, mesmerized by the creature he had stumbled upon. He learned things too, over those quiet nights. He learned that Elowen's song was not just sound, it was magic. It rippled through the water, repairing micro-tears in coral tissue, neutralizing chemical toxins, clearing plastic fragments from the seabed. He watched dead water turn clear, watched barren sand bloom with new marine life, watched damaged ecosystems revive in hours when human technology would have taken decades. He learned that everything he had believed about environmentalism was wrong. He had always thought conservation was a barrier to progress, a luxury for people who could afford to care. But watching Elowen heal the sea with nothing but her voice, he understood the truth. Humanity's progress was built on borrowed time. The ocean's patience was finite. One evening, as dusk painted the sky pink and purple, Elowen swam to the shore, her teal tail glinting in the fading light, and rested her arms on the sand, looking up at Killian. "Why did you become a destroyer?" she asked quietly. Killian sat down on the warm sand beside her, his gaze distant as he stared out at the waves. "The ocean killed my parents," he said bluntly. "I was 16. They were marine scientists, studying coral bleaching. A Category 5 hurricane hit without warning. Their boat went down. No survivors. I was left with nothing but debt and a name no one cared about." Elowen's eyes softened. She had not expected grief. She had expected greed, arrogance, indifference. Not pain. "You hated the sea for taking them," she murmured. "I hated its chaos," Killian admitted. "I hated that it could give and take life without conscience. So I decided to control it. To make it serve human needs. I thought if I conquered the ocean, I would never lose anything again." "But you lost more," Elowen said gently. "You lost kindness. You lost wonder. You lost the ability to see the ocean as something sacred." Killian was quiet for a long time. "I did," he whispered finally. In that moment, the wall between them cracked completely. The billionaire and the mermaid were no longer enemies. They were two lonely souls, both grieving the ocean in their own ways. Elowen reached up, her fingers brushing lightly against his knuckles, a soft, tentative touch. "You can heal both losses," she said. "You can heal the ocean. And you can heal yourself." Killian turned his hand beneath hers, lacing their fingers together, human skin against sea-kissed skin. The connection was instant, electric, impossible to ignore. He did not know he was falling in love with her yet. But he was. Chapter 6: Corporate Chaos and Rising Threats. The shutdown of Project Deep Azure sent shockwaves through the global financial market. Cross-global maritime stock plummeted 14% in 48 hours. Board members resigned in protest. Investors pulled funding. News outlets worldwide screened headlines: "Millionaire ocean tycoon abandons billion-dollar project without explanation." Killian did not care. He sat in his home office each morning, reviewing Elowen's restoration progress, approving new company policies banning single-use plastics across all cross-global vessels, mandating zero-emission shipping, funding mass ocean cleanup initiatives, rewriting his entire corporate mission statement around ecological restoration. Sophia watched his transformation in awe, working overtime to buffer the corporate backlash, to explain the sudden shift in company values, to protect Killian from his own board's rebellion. "They're calling you reckless," Sophia said one morning, laying a stack of news articles on his desk. "They're saying you've lost your business mind. That some unknown personal motive has made you abandon profit for charity." Killian scanned the headlines without concern. "Let them talk. The restoration data is undeniable. Elowen's healing work has revived 300 acres of dead coral in 2 weeks. We're doing more for the ocean than every environmental group combined." "The board doesn't care about coral," Sophia said. "They care about quarterly earnings. Then they can find new companies to fund," Killian said flatly. "I built this empire. I decide its purpose." Sophia hesitated, lowering her voice. "There's another problem. Roman Hale is investigating." Killian's jaw tightened. Roman Hale was his oldest rival, CEO of Horizon Maritime, a competitor known for ruthless, unethical drilling practices and cutthroat corporate espionage. Hale had spent years trying to take down Cross Global, waiting for a single weakness to exploit. "What's he investigating?" Killian asked. "The sudden project shutdown. The private cove security lockdown. Your sudden refusal to host public events or allow press access to your estate. He suspects you're hiding something big. Something valuable." Sophia paused. He's hired private surveillance teams. They're scanning your coastline nightly. Killian's gaze turned sharp, dangerous. If Roman Hale found Elowen's secret, if he discovered the existence of a living mermaid, he would weaponize it instantly. He would capture her, study her, sell her secrets to the highest bidder, destroy her and her reef for profit. Increase security, Killian ordered. Drone patrols, motion sensors, coastal perimeter lockdown. No unauthorized personnel within 5 miles of the estate. Terminate any surveillance attempts immediately. Already done, Sophia said. But Hale doesn't quit. He'll keep digging. As if on cue, Elowen appeared in the office doorway, her silver blue hair falling over her shoulders, her expression quiet but alert. She had heard the tension in their voices, had sensed the rising danger. Someone is watching us, she said, her senses picking up distant human intent. Malicious intent. Greedy intent. Killian stood immediately, moving to her side, protective instinct flaring hot. You're safe here. I won't let anyone hurt you. Elowen looked up at him, her blue eyes serious. Human greed is endless, Killian. Your rival will not stop until he finds what you hide. And if he finds me, he will use my existence to destroy everything you've built and everything I'm saving. Killian's hand lifted to cup her cheek gently, his touch soft despite the danger coiling in his chest. Then we stop him first, he said. Together. Outside, hidden in a tree line half a mile away, a surveillance camera zoomed in on the mansion window, capturing the moment the billionaire touched the mysterious silver-haired woman's face. The footage was sent straight to Roman Hale's private phone. Hale stared at the unknown woman's face, intrigued and ruthless. Whatever Cross is hiding, it's worth destroying him for. Chapter 10: Tides of Feeling. As the weeks passed, the line between bargain and bond blurred beyond recognition. Elowen spent her days learning humanity, learning Killian. She learned his quiet morning routine, his habit of working through lunch, his tendency to stare out at the ocean when he thought no one was watching. She learned his scars, the emotional damage from losing his family, the loneliness of running an empire alone, the guilt he carried from years of ocean destruction. Killian learned her in return. He learned her joy in small human things: sunset light through windows, warm rain on skin, the taste of fresh fruit, the sound of wind through coastal trees. He learned her sorrow, her endless grief for the dying sea, her guilt over leaving her people behind. He learned her strength, her unshakable courage, her refusal to give up even when the damage felt irreversible. They worked together every day on restoration projects. Killian's company deployed thousands of ocean cleanup drones, removed tons of plastic waste from trench floors, shut down toxic shipping lanes, funded coral regrowth laboratories. Elowen sang over damaged waters each night, her magic amplifying human technology, turning slow restoration into rapid, miraculous recovery. The Azure Reef began to bloom again. Gray coral turned blue. Dead polyps regrew. Fish species thought extinct returned to the trench. The artificial drilling hum faded. The ocean began to sing once more. One night, as they stood on the cliff watching bioluminescent waves glow far below, Elowen leaned her head lightly on Killian's shoulder. It's working, she whispered, relief thick in her voice. We're saving it. Killian turned his head, his cheek brushing the top of her hair, his heart racing in a way business deals and billions never could make it race. We're saving it, he repeated softly. Not just me. Not just you. Us. Elowen lifted her head, turning to face him, their faces inches apart in the dark ocean breeze. His gray eyes were soft now, no longer cold, no longer guarded. She could see every vulnerable part of him, every hidden good thing he had buried beneath years of ruthlessness. You've changed, she said quietly. You changed me, Killian replied. The air between them thickened, warm and charged. The ocean wind stilled. The waves slowed. The entire world felt like it paused, waiting for something inevitable. Killian leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. Elowen did not pull away. She lifted her chin, meeting him halfway, her lips soft against his. The kiss was salt and sunlight and magic, mortal and immortal colliding in a single perfect moment. It was the meeting of destroyer and savior, human and sea, grief and redemption. When they pulled apart, Killian's forehead rested gently against hers, his breath unsteady. I don't want this to be a bargain anymore, he whispered. I don't want you here to save a reef. I want you here because you want to be with me. Elowen's eyes glistened, ocean bright and full of feeling. I already am, she whispered back. For the first time in 5,000 years of mermaid history, a royal sea princess fell in love with a human. But far beneath the waves, Elias felt the shift in her heart. Felt the mortal bond forming. Felt the forbidden love taking root. And he rose toward the surface, furious and afraid, ready to tear the human world apart to bring her home. Chapter 8: The Guardian's Wrath. The storm came without warning. It rolled over the Atlantic overnight, black and violent, towering thunderheads swallowing the moon, wind howling so loud it shook the mansion's floor-to-ceiling windows. The ocean raged, waves crashing violently against the cliff base, spray shooting high into the air. Elowen stood at the window, her body tense, her eyes wide with recognition. Elias, she whispered. Killian stepped beside her, hand settling protectively on her back, staring out at the impossible storm. Local weather reports had predicted clear skies all week. This ferocious, sudden tempest was unnatural. Your guardian? He asked. He felt our bond, Elowen said, worried. He knows I've fallen for a human. He's come to take me back. To end this before it destroys me. The front doors of the mansion slammed open a moment later, wind tearing through the entryway, saltwater mist swirling into the room. Elias stood in the doorway, his silver hair dripping wet, his mermaid tail still partially shifted, sharp and luminous in the dim light. His eyes were blazing with rage, fixed entirely on Killian. Human, he snarled, his voice thunderous, echoing through the halls. You have bewitched her. You have tainted our princess with your mortal greed. You will end this love now, or I will drown every coast you own. Killian stepped firmly in front of Elowen, shielding her, his posture unyielding despite the mermaid's raw power. I'm not hurting her, Killian said steadily. I'm protecting her. I'm healing the ocean. I'm keeping every promise I made. Your promises are mortal, Elias roared. Mortal things fade. Mortals betray. Mortals destroy. She has abandoned her people for you. She has broken sacred law for a man who once killed her home. Elowen pushed past Killian, standing between them, her voice firm and commanding, royal authority ringing clear. I have broken no law that matters, she said. The old laws were written for a time when humans only destroyed. This human has changed. He is saving us. He is repaying every harm his empire caused. Love blinds you. Elias shouted. He will die. You will outlive him by centuries. You will grieve a mortal forever. Elowen's breath caught. She had not considered that. The cruelest truth of mermaid-human love. Killian was mortal. He would age. He would fade. He would die while she remained young, eternal, bound to the sea forever. It was a love with an expiration date. A tragedy written in time. But Elowen did not flinch. I would rather love him for a single lifetime than live eternity alone, she said fiercely. I would rather grieve a good man than never know goodness at all. Elias stared at her, his rage cracking into sorrow, his shoulders slumping. He had watched over her for centuries. He had protected her, raised her, guarded her through every loss. He only wanted to save her from heartbreak. You will regret this, he whispered brokenly. I won't, Elowen said. Because he's worth it. And the ocean is worth saving. Our people are worth saving. This love is not a betrayal. It's hope. The storm outside began to calm, the wind softening, the waves settling. Elias's power faded, his anger dissolving into reluctant acceptance. He turned his gaze to Killian, sharp and warning. If you break her heart, if you return to destruction, if you ever fail the sea again, I will erase your entire bloodline. No mercy. No second chances. Killian nodded solemnly. I swear it, he said. I will protect her. I will protect the ocean. For the rest of my life. Elias hesitated one last time, then shifted fully back into human form, his silver hair drying, his tail fading into legs. He would stay on land temporarily, to watch, to guard, to ensure the human's promise held true. But the threat lingered in the air, heavy and unspoken. Their love was forbidden. Fragile. Doomed by time. And outside the mansion walls, Roman Hale's surveillance net was closing in fast. Chapter 9 Shadows of Greed and Redemption's Trial. Dawn broke pale and gray over the Atlantic, streaked with thin, bruised clouds that clung to the cliffside like lingering sorrow. The violent storm Elias had summoned faded to a gentle, misty rain, the ocean's rage softening into a quiet, watchful calm. The mansion's floor-to-ceiling windows fogged slightly with coastal humidity, blurring the line between the human estate and the sea kingdom Elowen had left behind. Elowen stood at the glass long after Killian had retreated to his home office, her palm pressed flat against the cool surface, her chest tight with the weight of Elias's warning. She had known the cost of loving a human from the moment she'd stepped onto mortal shores. Immortality was a cruel gift, endless tides, endless seasons, endless solitude waiting for her once Killian's mortal life burned out. But as she replayed the warmth of his touch, the sincerity of his vow, the way he'd abandoned his billion-dollar legacy for a dying ocean, she could not bring herself to regret her choice. Love, she realized, was not measured in centuries. It was measured in courage, in choosing to fight, to heal, to care, even when loss was inevitable. A soft footfall sounded behind her, and Elias's quiet voice cut through the misty silence. "You still believe he is different?" Elowen did not turn. She could feel his presence at her back, the ancient, protective magic that had guarded her since childhood thrumming gently, no longer sharp with rage. His anger had burned itself out in the storm, leaving only exhaustion and fear for the princess he'd sworn to protect. "He is different," she replied firmly. "You've seen the reef, Elias. You felt it. The gray is fading. The magic is returning. His human greed has turned to guilt, and his guilt has turned to action. No other human in centuries has ever cared enough to reverse what their kind has broken." Elias stepped beside her, his silver hair catching the faint morning light, his gaze fixed on the churning blue waves below. "Temporary redemption is not loyalty. Humans relapse. They crave power and profit like the sea craves salt. One good choice does not erase a lifetime of destruction." "Then I will stay to remind him," Elowen said. "I will stay to make sure he never forgets. The reef still needs healing. The oceans still need a voice in the highest rooms of human power. If Killian's empire can be rewritten into a force for good, we save not just our kingdom but every marine species drowning under human neglect." Elias fell silent, his sharp features softening. He could not deny the truth in her words. For 5,000 years, the merfolk had hidden, fled, and fought human destruction, never once trying to change humanity. Elowen was the first royal to ever bridge the divide, to turn enemy into ally, to choose hope over hatred. It was reckless, foolish, and revolutionary, everything their rigid ancient laws had forbidden, and everything their dying world needed. "I will remain on land," he said at last, surrender settling heavy in his tone. "I will watch over you. I will not interfere with your bond, not unless he betrays you. But I will not let you face human greed alone." Elowen turned to him, a faint, grateful smile tugging at her lips. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet," he warned. "The real danger is not Killian Cross. It is the world he belongs to. The man Hale watches from the trees is not just a rival businessman. He is a predator who smells weakness, and he will hunt you relentlessly." Down in the valley, half a mile from the mansion's gated perimeter, Roman Hale sat in the leather interior of his matte black SUV, scrolling through the blurry surveillance footage on his tablet. The image zoomed in on Elowen's face, pale, otherworldly, her silver blue hair glowing faintly in the sunset light, a beauty so unnatural it bordered on supernatural. Hale's cold, calculating eyes narrowed. For months, he had watched Killian Cross unravel. The ruthless, profit-obsessed tycoon he'd competed with for a decade had abandoned his most lucrative project, gutted his company's revenue stream, alienated his board, and locked himself away in a private coastal estate, all for a mysterious unknown woman. Rumors had circulated in corporate circles: blackmail, secret scandals, hidden affairs, illegal environmental cover-ups. But Hale knew better. There was no scandal, no affair, no cover-up powerful enough to make Killian Cross sacrifice billions. Whatever this woman was, she was priceless. "Dig deeper," he ordered his surveillance operative seated beside him, his voice low and venomous. "Run facial recognition. Track every movement, every exit, every visitor to that estate. I want to know who she is, where she came from, and why Cross burned his entire empire to keep her hidden. Facial recognition is coming back empty, sir, the operative replied, confused. No records, no passport, no social media, no birth certificate. She doesn't exist in any human database. Hale's lips curved into a sharp, greedy smile. Even better. If she's a secret, she's a commodity. One that could destroy Cross Global overnight. He tossed the tablet onto the dashboard, his gaze fixed on the towering glass mansion perched on the cliff. Cross abandoned deep-sea mining for her. That means whatever she is, she's connected to that Azure Trench project. Find the link. Find the proof. And when we do, we leak it all. Ruin Cross. Take over his maritime assets. And secure whatever miracle he's hiding for ourselves. Back inside the mansion, Killian's home office hummed with quiet urgency. Sophia stood before his polished oak desk, laying out a stack of damning intelligence reports, her expression strained with unspoken fear. The corporate backlash had escalated violently overnight. 3 more senior board members resigned this morning, she said, flipping open the top file. Shareholder lawsuits are filed against you for intentional revenue loss. Major shipping partners are terminating contracts. The media is painting you as a reckless, unstable CEO who's tanked a Fortune 500 empire on a personal whim. Killian did not flinch as he scanned the documents, his gaze steady, unregretful. He had known the consequences of his choice from the moment he'd halted Project Deep Azure. Wealth, power, reputation, all of it was meaningless if the ocean, the planet, and the woman he loved were lost. Settle the lawsuits, he said flatly. Use personal assets, not company funds. Reinstate all terminated coastal restoration programs. Release a full public report detailing the ecological damage our mining would have inflicted on the Azure Trench. No more loopholes, no more cover-ups. We tell the truth. Sophia's eyes widened in shock. Killian, the public isn't ready for that. They'll call you delusional. The scientific community has no data on that trench's unique ecosystem. You'll be mocked, discredited, destroyed. Let them mock me, he replied, lifting his gaze to the window, where he could see Elowen standing in the mist, her figure soft and ethereal against the gray ocean. I'd rather be a discredited fool than a wealthy destroyer. The truth matters more than reputation now. Sophia stared at him, witnessing the complete transformation of the man she'd served for years. The cold, unyielding billionaire who once valued profit above all else was gone. In his place stood a man humbled by magic, redeemed by love, committed to atoning for his lifetime of harm. There's more, she said, lowering her voice to an urgent whisper. Hale's team breached our peripheral security last night. They captured thermal footage of the private cove, night footage of an unidentified bioluminescent aquatic figure in the water. They don't know what it is yet, but they're piecing it together fast. Killian's jaw locked, his entire body tensing with protective fury. This was the nightmare he'd feared. One wrong move, one leaked piece of evidence, and Elowen's secret would be exposed to the world. She would become a target for governments, scientists, black market collectors, and greedy tycoons like Hale. Lock down the cove entirely, he ordered immediately. Deploy underwater security drones, motion-activated barrier systems, full infrared surveillance. No human access within 2 miles. Disable all external surveillance feeds in the entire coastal zone. Cut Hale's every avenue of investigation. It's already done, Sophia said, but Hale is relentless. He's hired former military intelligence specialists. He's going to find a way in. He's already betting everything that you're hiding a world-changing secret. Killian stood from his desk, his tall frame rigid with resolve. Then we end this before it starts. I'll meet with Hale face to face. I'll cut a deal to protect the estate, the trench, and Elowen. You can't bargain with him, Sophia argued sharply. Hale doesn't do truces. He'll use any meeting as a trap to uncover your secret. He'll manipulate every word, every gesture, to destroy you. I have no other choice, Killian said quietly. I built this war. I destroyed the ocean first. Now I have to fight to protect the only good thing I've ever created. A soft knock sounded on the office door, and Elowen stepped inside, her silver blue hair damp from the mist, her eyes sharp with awareness. She had heard every word, her mermaid senses picking up the tension in their voices, the malice lingering in the air from Hale's distant surveillance. "You don't have to fight this alone," she said, walking straight to Killian's side, her hand resting firmly on his arm. "This is my fight too. My home is at stake. My people are at stake. I will not let you sacrifice your empire to protect me." Killian turned to her, his hard expression softening instantly at the sight of her determined face. "I'm not letting you anywhere near Hale. He's ruthless, greedy, and unhinged. He'll exploit you the second he sees your power." Elowen lifted her chin, royal fire blazing in her ocean blue eyes. "I am the princess of the Azure tides. I have commanded storms, healed dying seas, and outlived centuries of human cruelty. I am not a fragile secret to be protected, Killian. I am a weapon and a healer. And I will stand beside you." Elias stepped into the doorway behind her, his presence imposing, his magic thrumming faintly in the air. "If you face Hale, we face him together. Human greed is no match for the ancient power of the tides. But be warned, exposing our magic to defend your world will break the final veil between our races. There will be no going back." Killian looked from Elowen's fierce, loving gaze to Elias's stern, protective resolve, and finally to Sophia's worried, loyal face. For the first time in his life, he was not fighting alone. He had a family, not the cold, empty empire he'd built, but a circle of souls bound by redemption, hope, and a shared love for the dying ocean. "Then we end this together," he said firmly. "We stop Hale. We finish restoring the reef. We rewrite the future of the ocean. No more secrets. No more destruction. No more fear." That evening, as dusk painted the Atlantic in hues of deep indigo and coral pink, Elowen returned to the private cove to continue her healing work. The storm's aftermath had stirred the ocean, clearing layers of stagnant pollution, leaving the water crisp and clear. She slipped out of her human clothes, stepping into the cold salt water, and her body shifted effortlessly back into her true mermaid form, iridescent teal scales glowing bright, bioluminescent freckles flickering across her skin, her tail rippling gracefully through the waves. She dove deep into the cove's hidden underwater caves, her body cutting through the water like light, and began to sing. Her melody was softer now, warmer, no longer a song of grief and desperation. It was a song of redemption for the reef, for humanity, for Killian, for the forbidden love that had united two worlds. The magic rippled outward from her voice, spreading through the cove, drifting toward the distant Azure Trench, weaving through broken coral, neutralizing chemical waste, reviving dormant marine life. Beneath her song, the ocean answered. Tiny bioluminescent fish swarmed around her, glowing like scattered stars. Fragments of broken coral floated upward, reattaching to the reef's structure, blooming bright blue and cyan. The faint, weak heartbeat of the Azure reef strengthened, steadying with every note she sang. Killian stood on the cliff shore, watching her glow beneath the darkening waves, his heart full and unsteady. He had once hated this ocean, blamed it for every loss in his life. Now it was the source of every good thing he had ever known. It had given him Elowen. It had given him purpose. It had given him redemption. Elias stood beside him, his gaze softening as he watched the princess he'd guarded for centuries thrive. "She was born to heal this world," he murmured. "We all thought her kindness was weakness. But it is her greatest power." Killian nodded, his eyes never leaving Elowen's glowing figure in the water. "I will spend every day of my mortal life honoring that power. I will spend every day protecting her ocean." But far out at sea, a sleek, unmarked yacht drifted silently in the dusk, its engines dead, its cameras trained on the private cove. Roman Hale stood on its deck, binoculars pressed to his eyes, staring in unbridled awe and greed at the glowing mermaid dancing beneath the waves. His suspicion was confirmed. Killian Cross's secret was not a woman. It was a miracle. A myth. A weapon. A fortune beyond calculation. And Hale intended to steal it. A cold, cruel smile spread across his face as he lowered his binoculars, speaking quietly into his comms device. "Prepare the capture team. We move at midnight,